welcome. If you've seen any of my recent videos, you'll know that I love the 7th generation of gaming, particularly the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. And following on from 2 recent videos I've done, one on just why it's so good, and another on some really cheap, less than £2 games you can pick up for the system, I wanted to bring to you wonderful people on YouTube games trapped on the 7th generation that you really need to play. If you enjoy this video, click the thumbs up to let me know, and I'll do another list in the future because there's loads to go at. I'm going to stay away from a couple of the very obvious ones like Arkham Origins and the original Red Dead Redemption because we all know about those, and try and get a couple that you might want to add to your backlog. Let's kick off with Splinter Cell Blacklist. This is the 7th instalment in the Splinter Cell franchise and currently stands as the last one. You're back again as Sam Fisher. You're trying to stop a terrorist group known as the Engineers and their evil plan to recall all troops from abroad, leaving the wealth at their mercy. This has got a fantastic combination of stealth and action. Now, it was actually criticised at some points for being a bit too heavy on the action and a bit light on the stealth, which was what made the series great. But honestly, I don't agree with that, because the way I see it, it gives you great diversity in how you complete your missions. Also, should you get spotted by a road guard, you don't have to start again. Big bonus. And just to top it off, it's the best looking game in the franchise by far. Of all the lost franchises, Splinter Cell is one I'm desperate to come back. But until then, we've got this great masterpiece. Get it in your library. Next up, from one of the biggest developers in the game, Rockstar's Max Payne 3. For some reason, this seems to be overlooked, and I don't know why. Because, first of all, the Max Payne franchise is awesome, and secondly, this is probably one of the best third-person shooters you can ever play. You're back as Max, the grizzled, now ex-police officer, working as a private bodyguard, and oh no, everything's gone wrong. Time for him to pop some painkillers, grab a lot of guns, and put things right. Bullet time is back. The third-person shooter mechanics are some of the best you will ever play. And I'm repeating myself here, but seriously, they're that good. It looks beautiful. I do think you could get away with putting it on and letting somebody who isn't in the know see it and think it's a current-gen game. That's how good it looks. You've got exotic locations, nice variants of bad guys, and oh yeah, a lot of ammo. This is a must-play. My favourite game on this list, and possibly my favourite hidden gem on the 7th gen. XCOM, The Bureau, Declassified. Now, you've heard XCOM, so you're probably thinking crushingly difficult turn-based combat. Well, that's not what this is. This is a third-person shooter, and it plays just like your favourite guilty secret B-movie. It's set in the 50s when all great sci-fi alien encounter things are. You're the stoic member of XCOM. The aliens have just invaded. Grab your hat, grab your gun, and bring the fight to them. It has got a really interesting team management mechanic. Now, it's not perfect. They do occasionally try and commit ari-kari by standing in front of the baddie's bullets. But it works more often than not, and it's really innovative. You press the button, time slows right down but doesn't completely stop. You get a decent variety of orders, and it does lend a real good live action tactical element to the combat, which helps separate it from the horde of third person shooters which were around when this game was released. It looks quite good in my opinion. The story I adore. I love the story of this game. No spoilers, but you've got a great twist towards the end which is worth playing for. And yeah, I will admit, I like this sort of sci-fi, I like these B-movie style films. But this game is just so good. It's got a couple of glitches. The AI's not perfect. Who cares? When you're having this much fun, that's all that matters. A double bubble for you here. Prototype and Prototype 2. I actually slightly prefer Prototype 2, but they're both awesome. Have you ever wanted to play as an overpowered superhero who doesn't have to be a hero? Well, you're in luck. Whether you want to morph into a monster, have strange powers from a mutation, shapeshift, drive a tank, pick a tank up and throw it at somebody. You can do it all. Oh yeah, and you can fly. Well, glide. It's absolutely brilliant. The amount of variety with the mechanics here for a 7th generation game is absolutely mind-boggling. I would say this game was actually ahead of itself. Again, like the other games I've mentioned, it looks brilliant. I was actually playing it the other day and my 17-year-old nephew came in and thought I was playing on the PlayStation 4. He didn't know that it was a past-gen game. That's how good it looks. And remember when I said you don't have to be a hero? It's all in your control. If you want to go full mutant beast mode and destroy a group of civilians, go for it. You can. In fact, you have to absorb them sometimes anyway. You can have so much fun in this game. You can almost forget the story, although there is one and it's actually worth playing through. Don't think I'm giving the story a disservice because it is really actually quite entertaining, but it's more about the sandbox. I would say this is one of the ultimate open world games where you can do anything you want to. Isn't that a good enough reason to play it in itself? An Xbox 360 exclusive here, The Witcher 2. Now when I say The Witcher, you either think of the Netflix series starring Superman, well, for now, or The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, one of the greatest RPGs of its type of all time. But you could also get The Witcher 2. Now, this was mainly a PC game, but it did come out exclusively on console to the Xbox 360. I haven't actually played through much of this, only the first 3 or 4 hours, but it is very much like The Witcher. Don't compare it to The Witcher 3. It's not as pretty, it's not as good, it's a generation older. But if you compare it to what else was out at the time, Skyrim for example, it's on par. It is a vast, sprawling RPG, humongous world, deep, deep lore, and you've got so many options of game mechanics and ways to fight, it's hard to remember them all. But that's part of the fun, discovering new ways to do things. I enjoyed my very brief time with The Witcher 2, and when I do get an Xbox 360 to add to my little game collection, to go alongside the PlayStation 3, it'll be one of the first I get, because as I'm not a PC gamer, it's the only way I can play it, and I really want to. This one, again, not just an exclusive, but pure hidden gem, Brutal Legend. Calling all heavy metal fans, this is the game for you. First of all, this has got the most epic soundtrack of any game ever. I will not accept any arguments on that point. You have got everybody on there, from Jack Black, who's the voice and the model for the main protagonist, Ozzy Osbourne, Lemmy, so many others that I can't even think of all the names right now. And you've got the licensed music as well, which is probably the main reason it's still trapped on the 7th gen actually. Copyright, licenses, you know. As I said, the main character, voiced and modelled on, well, to a degree, Jack Black. It's all heavy metal themed throughout. You are a roadie, transported to a fantasy world, inspired by, actually, many heavy metal album covers. And you've got a simple task. Save humanity from the supernatural baddies. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Well, fortunately, you've got your Flying V guitar, which is also an axe in its truest form. Your main weapon, you can go around, destroy the enemies with it. It's got many different abilities, which you'll learn as you play. And my favourite part of the game, personally, you've got a hot rod, baby. Let me just reiterate. You're going around as Jack Black, listening to heavy metal, driving a hot rod, and smashing a Flying V over people's faces to defeat them. What more do you want? That's video game perfection to me. Time for another third-person action game. There's a bit of a theme here, isn't there? I told you there was a lot. This one is basically Hong Kong Max Payne. Stranglehold. If you want non-stop action, this is the one. This game is actually a sequel to a film known as Hard Boiled from 1992. I wish I'd actually seen it before trying to make this video. That would have made life easier. Moving on. You've got some fantastic shooting elements, and this is where I compare it to Max Payne, because you've got the bullet time-esque mechanics. It's called Tequila Time, and I think that's actually a really cool name. But not only that, you've got plenty of environmental attacks, a la Sleeping Dogs or even the Yakuza series. So 1 minute you're playing a third-person shooter, the next a third-person martial arts beat-em-up. It's a really good combination, and I really wish this had had a sequel, because it even comes from John Woo. And if you want action of this type, he's one of the main men. It plays like a cinematic story with some fantastic, varied in-game action. I love the story of this one as well. Worth playing to the end, just to get the ending. Let's mix things up. Let's have a third-person shooter. The Saboteur. This game plunges you straight into occupied France, which means only one thing: time to kill some Nazis. We haven't done that in games before, have we? Take on the identity of a racing driver mechanic. You've got a simple revenge mission. Your brother's been hurt. Everybody must pay. But this plays really differently. First of all, from an artistic standpoint, the world is in full colour if it's liberated. However, the areas which you are yet to liberate, which are Nazi occupied, are all in black and white. It adds a real good aesthetic to the game and actually manages to change the atmosphere from the happy, liberated, vibrant, colourful areas to the dreary, drab, black and white, oppressed Nazi areas. And it does make you want to fulfil the objective of taking them out. And how are you going to do that? Sabotage. It's in the title. Mechanically, this game actually has a few really well engineered, good features. First of all, I love the idea of planting bombs on things and then stepping back and waiting for them to blow up without getting spotted as well. That just makes it even more interesting. You can climb buildings very much like Assassin's Creed actually, at least that's what it reminded me of. Good, solid, third-person shooter mechanics, nothing particularly to say there other than that. They just work really well as they should. And also, there's a GTA element to it, because get into any car you like, nick it, and drive it round and use it for your missions. As an open world game, I think this succeeds with a really unique hook. The sabotage side of things, its title's namesake, is actually one of the most fun things you can do. Yes, it's got a main story campaign and it's, well, I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but you can probably predict it really. Nazi occupied area, liberate it. Done. But hey, you get to climb the Eiffel Tower and shoot a Nazi. That's fun. I really like this game. It's one I've played through numerous times. It's another one that's actually really quite cheap to pick up as well. I strongly would encourage anybody who loves a bit of an open world, fun game, pick it up and just have a great time. Next up, we're going to step away from third-person shooters to a first-person shooter. The Resistance Trilogy. Now, I'm sure you've seen in the gaming news that Sony's been kicking off about Xbox maybe having the rights to Call of Duty through its Activision Blizzard acquisition. Yet Sony does actually have a really good amount of first-person shooter properties they own, which are just hibernating. The Resistance games are definitely one of them, and they do play as a trilogy, and the story continues with each one. You're in an alternative version of the 1950s. And aliens have attacked. They've come to occupy the planet Earth, take it over, and have it for themselves. You are a member of the Resistance, see what I did there, who aims to stop that happening and send those nasty, big green men back to their home planet. Edit, they're not really green. I don't mean to keep repeating myself, but again, this game looks beautiful. From the first one to the third, there's actually a slight improvement, but the first one still looks really good as well, as does the second. The first-person shooter mechanics are incredibly solid. Play really, really well. You start off with Earth weapons, and eventually you start to obtain some alien technology, which adds a little level to it as well. Decent variety of enemies, great variety of locations. And the story here, whilst it's got a very, very simplistic base, actually has some good little twists and turns to keep you occupied as well. Meaning that once you've played the first one, and please do start with the first one, you're going to want to play the second and third, not just for the amazing time you've had with the gameplay, but because you want to advance this story and see where it ends. Why this series has not come back and Sony is just sitting on it is beyond me. It should still be going. Come back, Resistance! Please! And I'm going to end on a favourite trilogy of mine that is stuck on the 7th gen. Technically, you can also get them on the 6th gen on the PS2 as well, but the 7th gen version's much, much better. Tomb Raider Legend, Tomb Raider Anniversary, and Tomb Raider Underworld. Now, of the three, Tomb Raider Anniversary, which is a remake and, I don't want to say remaster, reimagining, let's say, of the first Tomb Raider game, well, Anniversary doesn't get as much love as I would give it. But I still think it's worth playing. But the main two, Tomb Raider Legend, Tomb Raider Underworld, by God, they're worth playing. In fact, they're so good, I gave them their own video. Why not check it out now? See you next time. Ta-da.